You may be seated.
To John's beloved family, Mrs. McCain, to Cindy and the McCain children, President Mrs. Bush, President Secretary Clinton, Vice President Mrs. Biden, Vice President Mrs. Cheney, Vice President Gore, and as John would say, my friends. We come to celebrate an extraordinary man, a warrior, a statesman, a patriot, who embodied so much that is best in America. President Bush and I are among the fortunate few who competed against John at the highest levels of politics. He made us better presidents, just as he made the Senate better, just as he made this country better. So for someone like John to ask you, while he's still alive, to stand and speak of him when he's gone is a precious and singular honor. Now, when John called me with that request earlier this year, I'll admit sadness and also a certain surprise. But after our conversation ended, I realized how well it captured some of John's essential qualities. To start with, John liked being unpredictable, even a little contrarian. He had no interest in conforming to some prepackaged version of what a senator should be, and he didn't want a memorial that was going to be prepackaged either. It also showed John's disdain for self-pity. He had been to hell and back, and yet somehow never lost his energy or his optimism or his zest for life. So cancer did not scare him, and he would maintain that buoyant spirit to the very end, too stubborn to sit still, opinionated as ever, fiercely devoted to his friends, and most of all to his family. It showed his irreverence, his sense of humor, a little bit of a mischievous streak. After all, what better way to get a last laugh than to make George and I say nice things about him to a national audience? And most of all, it showed a largeness of spirit, an ability to see past differences in search of common ground. And in fact, on the surface, John and I could not have been more different. We're of different generations. I came from a broken home and never knew my father. John was the scion of one of America's most distinguished military families. I have a reputation for keeping cool. John, not so much. We were standard bearers of different American political traditions, and throughout my presidency, John never hesitated to tell me when he thought I was screwing up, which by his calculation was about once a day. But for all our differences, for all the times we sparred, I never tried to hide, and I think John came to understand the long-standing admiration that I had for him.
Our country has had the good fortune that at times of national trial, a few great personalities have emerged to remind us of our essential unity and inspire us to fulfill our sustaining values. John McCain was one of those gifts of destiny. I met John for the first time in April 1973 at a White House reception for prisoners returned from captivity in Vietnam. He had been much on my mind during the negotiations to end the Vietnam War, partly also because his father, then Commander-in-Chief of the Pacific Command, when briefing the President, answered references to his son by saying only, "I pray for him." In the McCain family, national service was its own reward that did not allow for special treatment. I thought of that when his Vietnamese captors, during the final phase of negotiations, offered to release John so that he could return with me on the official plane that had brought me to Hanoi. Against all my instincts, I thanked them for their offer, but refused it. I wondered what John would say when we finally met. His greeting was both self-effacing and moving. "Thank you for saving my honor." He did not tell me then or ever that he had had an opportunity to be freed years earlier, but had refused, a decision for which he had to endure additional periods of isolation and hardship. Nor did he ever speak of his captivity again during the near half-century of close friendship.
Tribute now from former Senator Joseph Lieberman, former Democrat, great friend of John McCain. McCain says he wishes he had picked him as his running mate in 2008.
Cindy McCain and the wonderful McCain family, Presidents Clinton, Bush, and Obama, Secretaries Kissinger and Clinton, all the other honored guests that are here, ladies and gentlemen. Becoming John McCain's friend is one of the great blessings of my life. Being asked to pay tribute to him today is one of the great honors. And for that, I thank Cindy and the entire McCain family. And I also want to thank them, including his mother, his brother, his sister, the 7 wonderful children, for the love and support you gave John throughout his life and his service, none more than in the last year of his life. And you, Cindy, have been absolutely, thank you, have been absolutely saintly, and we, his friends, cannot thank you enough. There's a special satisfaction that comes from serving a cause greater than yourself. I heard John say those words hundreds of times, particularly to young people, and you all heard them a lot as well. But for him, we know they were not just words in a speech, they were the creed that he lived by. And the greater cause to which he devoted his life was America. Not so much the country defined by its borders, but the America of our founding values: freedom, human rights, opportunity, democracy, and equal justice under law. In John's life, he nobly served and advanced these American values. And remarkably, his death seems to have reminded the American people that these values are what makes us a great nation. Not the tribal partisanship and personal attack politics that have recently characterized our life. This week's celebration of the life and values and patriotism of this hero, I think, have taken our country above all that. In a way, it's the last great gift that John McCain gave America. And I want to suggest today that we can give a last great gift to him, which is to nurture these values and take them forward into the years ahead to make America the better country John always knew it could be. I pray that we will, and I ask you to do so as well. Now, let me try to pay tribute to this great man by describing and sharing stories from our friendship, which began in the early 1990s as part of a bipartisan group pushing our government to stop the aggression and slaughter in Bosnia. And then we began to collaborate on a lot of bipartisan legislation. But really, our friendship deepened in our travels together around the world with our third amigo, Lindsey Graham. When you traveled with John, even with Lindsey along, the purpose was not to have fun. In fact, sometimes it seemed the purpose was just to survive the schedule he had organized. John had a restless energy every day, including the days we traveled, to get the most out of every day he possibly could, and he did. And so did we, who were privileged to know him. John traveled